everyone, welcome back to our story of the tax collector and the Pharisee who go up to the temple to pray. Last time we looked a little bit at what a Pharisee was and what was wrong with his prayer. Today we're going to start looking at the tax collector. So who was a tax collector? Well, we need to get out of our heads the idea of a tax collector today, who by and large are an instrument of our government collecting taxes for the good of the whole community so that we can flourish. At least that's the theory. And whilst we might not like our taxes being taken, nonetheless we generally recognise that the tax collectors themselves are probably not bad people at all. Not so in Jesus' time. The tax collector was indisputably a bad man. The kind of person you know has gone wrong. Why? Well, first of all, the taxes were collected for the Romans, the occupying force, and they employed Jewish people to do it. The tax collector then was a collaborator, the kind of person who has thrown in his lot with the occupying force. Secondly, because he associated with Romans who were Gentiles, he would have been unclean in the law. He shouldn't be associating with them. He was therefore hated on two grounds. On national grounds, if you like, and on religious grounds. And because he was ostracised and hated, he would rip off the people as much as he could. That is the kind of thing we see in the writings of people at the time. In short, tax collectors were hated, and for good reason. But God sees the heart. And we read in the story Jesus tells that the tax collector stood at a distance and would not even look up to heaven. The tax collector knew his position before God. He knew that he was not worthy. Who would we think of today in this kind of situation? It's really quite difficult because the tax collector had power as well as being hated. Perhaps it might be a landlord who deliberately rips off the tenants by having an extremely bad flat and not doing anything about it whilst taking lots of money. Or perhaps a developer who is taking money on the side from the people who give him permission and at the same time having a shoddy product that then he walks away from. These are the kinds of people in our society who might be something like equivalent. Really, really not liked. But Jesus sees the heart. This man wouldn't even look to heaven. He kept his eyes downcast and he beat his breast. And this is quite a strange thing for a man to do at that time. Women would quite often beat their breasts when they were in anguish or in sadness and sorrow. The only time we have in the Gospels that a man does this is when Jesus is crucified, when men and women alike beat their breasts. It was a sign of the deepest anguish and somewhat feminine. Imagine my developer or whoever comes into church and everyone knows him and he is weeping like a baby and crying out to God. What would we think? Would we have it in our hearts to forgive, or would we want to shun him? Can we forgive and embrace the sinner, or are we the ones who will not allow them in? This is the scenario that Jesus is setting up at this point in the parable. And he's reflecting on us, the hearer. How would you react? How do I react?